Alright guys, welcome back for another video where I'm Oni Peter Clampton, teaching you how to be your best, highest creative self through the Oni Raising Project. And today we are on day 9 of Project Lawbringer, talking about universal laws and their practical application for our writing and our creative endeavors. And today we are talking about one of the most exciting laws, the law of one. How everything is connected, and essentially everything is together. Now, there's a lot of materials out there that have talked about this. This is kind of monotheistic theory, right? So if you ever heard of like Hegel and Emerson, these guys are some philosophers that have talked about it extensively. You also hear about it from like Hindu religion, and like there's a lot of sources where you can learn about it. It's a pretty well-known concept in the general sense. I'm just adjusting the camera here a little bit because it is sort of how things work, right? It's how things are connected, right? Oftentimes we'll see that a lot of people or sources will come with the same idea or have the same understanding of something, and it's because they're all observing the same thing, right? And just finding their own different ways of how to say it, right? If I look at the sky and I see it's blue, right, and I live in one place, I might have a different word for the color blue, but at the end of the day, blue is blue, and the meaning and the idea is the same. But that's why it's important not to get so focused on words and focus more on their meanings and their ideas. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about, first off, let's read the full law of one entry from the cosmic laws of cosmic awareness and unpack this. So there's 3 big paragraphs here. I'll just read them out here and let's stick it out. So the law of one. This awareness indicates that all is one. There is the law of one, and all reside within this law. All souls are cells of the body of this awareness, and when this law is obeyed, there is no need for any entity to struggle or compete, for this is likened in the parts of one's body fighting amongst themselves, the body being at war with itself. With the law of one, you may be at peace in the body of this awareness. The law of one is a fixed and universal law in which those who understand the law of one realize that all is one, and all that appears to be separate will in the end be nothing but an illusion to those who followed the path of separation. The universe is one totality, and entities may recognize the whole universe. Then entities may move into that universal harmony. Now, a really big concept I want to talk about is you'll know. How me explain this? Your thoughts and your beliefs are going to resonate with the feelings you have about your life. So, for instance, if you have thoughts that lead to a pessimistic outlook, you're going to have pessimistic feelings. If you have thoughts and beliefs that lead to an optimistic outlook, you're going to have an optimistic view and feelings on the world. And so from the substance of your feelings about how you feel about your life, I want you to think about it right now. How do you feel about your life? How do you feel about you? How do you feel about the way you spend your time? How do you feel about your writing? How do you feel about your art, if you do art? How do you feel about the creative hobbies or the ways you express yourself? How do you feel you're approaching those crafts? And recognize that your beliefs in large part are going to dictate how you feel about them. So the reason I bring this up is because when we recognize and see that all is one, it's recognizing that every part of you is communicating with every other part of you in and around you, right? So that means this beach and everybody on it, is connected, and we're all talking and communicating in an not unknown, but just unseen ways, and some are more obvious than others. And just like the body has cells in it that work together. You have your bone cells, you have your skin cells, muscle cells, and the nervous system with your brain, as well as your lymph nodes and your arteries. All these different things are communicating and working in concert together to produce the experience that is your body, right? All these things are working together. Now, if you recognize that same level of interaction and intelligence is required when you're writing a living, breathing novel. A lot of time people will think a story is really difficult because they'll think one is thinking about all these different factors. You know, you're thinking about character, you're thinking about plotting, you're thinking about building setting and premise, you're thinking about backstory, foreshadowing, different chapters, what's this character's eye color, what's their hair color, all these different little details. And when you're able to house the living environment of story within yourself, that narrative comes very naturally, just like your body does. You're not thinking about breathing and moving and seeing and thinking and hearing things all at the same time consciously, but your body is doing all these things in concert because they are working together, because all is one. And if we understand that, we see that in life as well, in terms of the results we receive in life, as well as the different interactions we have and the things we're building, these things also work in one. Because, and this is a line you're going to hear me say a lot from here on out, the narrative world within us is more real than the waking world around us, right? I'll say that again. The narrative world within you is more real than the waking world around you. So what that means is that your story that you carry about life is what is going to dictate life is, far more than the external factors you see around you. A good book that really illustrates this is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, where he talks about logotherapy. It's about a man who gets taken into Auschwitz, which was a Nazi internment camp, one of the really big ones during World War II. And obviously it was terrible. There was people being experimented on and gassed and killed, and it was really bad, you know. It was the Holocaust. And so, but Viktor Frankl decided that he was going to make the Holocaust and everything he went through a positive experience. He made that decision. And then because of that, you know, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and it changed his life, and he lived many years after that. And he was, I mean, he had a complicated history, but he was fairly happy. I think a lot happier than you would have expected. But he definitely had stuff to process, for sure. There's no lying about that. But anyway, let's not knock this camera over. The biggest reason I talk about that is because if we understand that everything is one, the biggest thing is recognizing that the story, the narrative story we carry with ourselves is dictating the path our life has gone on. And it always has been. We just haven't been conscious of this. That's why they talk about being in the awareness. And oftentimes, like when you're watching this video, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build awareness, trying to break through those blocks, right? So if you're trying to finish a book, right? Like for me, it's about finishing a book and getting it down productively. I can see it, I can feel the characters, I can hear the sounds of everything going on. But there would be these blocks. There would be these issues I would have that are coming from all these different things. And oftentimes it's because it has nothing to do with the story. It's because everything is one, right? And now show Maslow's hierarchy, which is another thing that I do. Like and subscribe the video, by the way, and we'll talk more about, as we talk more about Maslow's hierarchy. I'm just going to put it probably up here somewhere. But in Maslow's hierarchy, we see that in order to become self-actualized and get all the way to the top, we need to take care of the basic foundations, which is food, water, shelter, being able to take care of ourselves. And then, you know, we need safety and security, then our relationships. And so we see that without having things that are supplementing or buttressing up the rest of our life, without things that are helping us protect the other aspects of our life, it throws off the balance of the creative endeavors we have. So oftentimes people will think, oh, the reason I'm not a good writer, or the reason I'm not a good artist, or the reason I'm not getting things done is because it's a craft issue. It's because I'm scared of it, or I'm not doing enough. When it might just be because you have a crazy household, right? If you're never staying in the same place long enough, it's hard to be really stable and get it done, especially if that's what you need, and that's part of your needs. And so it's really bearing down to what essentially is your role in the body of the whole, right? Because that's all of any of us are really trying to do, is seeing what is my role in this body, right? Am I a brain cell? Am I a skin cell? Am I a bone cell? Am I, muscle? What am I? And it's seeing about how we fit in with a whole. And one of the things we talk about that I think is really important is recognizing that you need to love yourself to kind of go to do that, which means to take responsibility for your welfare and your needs, right? Willingly, and accepting those needs based in reality, not trying to contrive or make them anything that they're not. But another part of not avoiding that contrivance is recognizing that because you have a need to work and to be part of the whole, you are connected to everything else. And so the idea, I also want to talk a lot about this idea of independence. See, independence is an illusion, right? The idea of independence is what takes you from being a dependent child, someone who's not able to take care of themselves and do something, to being an interdependent being, right? Which means you are working with others and contributing as a part of that whole. Independence is just the road to that. To say one is going to make independence their goal is like saying it's my goal to stay on the bus forever, when the bus is supposed to take you someplace, right? That's why vehicles exist. Independence is, I think it's an important aspect of life, but it's a very, very dangerous, it's very dangerous if that becomes your only goal. If you think independence is the top and I'm just going to be independent of everyone, that's an illusion. It's not real. It's a complete lie. When you say I'm going to be independent, you say independent of what? Like, you'll often hear the phrase of like strong independent woman, but it's like independent of what, right? Independent of men, independent of family, independent of money. What are you going to be independent of? Because at the end of the day, you're always dependent. Recognize that there's probably about maybe 80 people on this beach, right? And every single one last of these people, including myself, is 6 minutes of air. Like, if we were not able to breathe for 6 minutes, we're 6 minutes away from death, because every single last one of us needs air, right? Every single person here is at least most of the time it's 3 days, but 5 days at the most 5 days of water away from dying. If they didn't get water for 5 days, everyone here is done. And so we recognize that nobody here is independent of their basic needs, right? Your body is evidence of that. Psychologically as well. You can't be independent of needing friends and love and affection and needing something to express and have meaning in your life. We can't ever escape from these things. And so oftentimes, like, when we're sold this idea of independence, it's just a crock that capitalists, I now recognize I'm a capitalist and I kind of enjoy it, but I also recognize that a lot of capitalism encourages independence strictly because it's more beneficial to sell 2 Amazon subscriptions to 2 people living in separate households than to 1 Amazon subscription to an entire family. And that's why we're told to be independent, because when you become independent, what that means is you just become dependent on the dollar, right? And that means you spend your whole time working because you're, you're completely consecrated to money and to the dollar in your life, because that's where all your power comes in. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with money, but it's recognizing that if you're going to be dependent, you can't choose whether or not you're going to be dependent. You're just going to choose what are you going to depend on. That's really all you have a choice about. And so if you spend your whole time trying to be independent, then you're just going to end up being dependent on the lowest common denominator, which most of the time is money or, labor. And that's not a very good thing to do, especially if you are trying to reach for something higher. And it's not a creative capacity. When you're creating, you're coming from the deepest part of knowing who you are and expression. And you can only express when you see where you fit in the whole. But if you don't see yourself as part of a whole, or even see the whole at all, then you can't really express yourself and give it all. Because let's say you were to write that book and get it done. If nobody reads it, what good is it? How many of you would write a book if you knew no one would read it? So these are some things to think about. And it's recognizing that you were never meant to do all this by yourself, and you're never meant to completely go it alone, and that you're not alone, and that's possible to be so, even though it's very common to feel that way. And so that's the law of one, really. Just I think it's really important to recognize that we all have that contribution and that part of us. And another thing I want to talk about, not too much, but we'll talk about this more in detail, is just the idea of archetypes, and that even within us, like within our personalities, as a writer especially, I have multiple personalities. If you see any of my other skits, I run, I have my legal name, and then I normally go by Oni, and then my pen name is Peter Clampton. And so I have like different personalities that I'm always playing to, depending on the hats and the roles I need to fill in my life. Now, there is a central me who I associate with and choose to be, but that comes from a sense of commitment and from seeing myself in connection to all these things, right? And in order to really expand out and create at the highest level, coming to terms with your capacity and how that's expressed, that's going to be a really big turning key for you. So as you go about, just take some time to really observe and see how you fit into things, into the different roles in your life, whether it's at your job or within your family or any other organization or hobbies you fit in. Just see, what's my role here and how do I more fully exemplify that? Do I like this role? And if there's a different role you want to see yourself in, ask yourself why, and what are some ways you can better express that through action and through just your life in general. I think especially as you're working to create, and for the writers out there trying to get that book and break through your blocks, it's super important to see what is my motivation and to pick a course, right? Because when you understand where you're going and can make decisions, it enables you to move with power. And when you move with power, then you're part of the whole, then you're part of the collective. And that's where the peace and harmony comes from. And that's what I wish for all of you guys. Anyway, so that is the law of one. Like and subscribe if you guys learned something new. And if you like the video, share it with someone else. And I really appreciate it. Leave any comments or ideas and thoughts down below. And I hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to, now when this comes out, you guys should know that I'm setting up pre-orders for the third volume of my book, The Girl and the Beast, Blackwater Rising. I'm super excited about it, so pick up a copy of the first two so you guys can read the Kindle version of Volume 3 when it comes out October 7th. And until then, like, subscribe, stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, remember you are not alone. All is one, and one is all. Peace. Take care.